Hello everyone, this is Ohio Dan again with another MGTOW video. I wanted to discuss something that has been an idea not only within MGTOW, and different content producers have actually had different points of views on this. Um, and also there has been an issue among people who like to criticize MGTOW and who essentially say that all MGTOW do is talk about women, that if it was really about going your own way, why is women always a topic of conversation? Why can't you discuss things that involve growing beyond this, actually bettering yourself as individual people and whatnot? And like I say, even actual MGTOWs, who don't mean this as a direct criticism, have discussed, the idea that there are many channels, there are many producers who all they seem to do is talk about women, and they're just angry. And at the end of the day, there may not be any benefit from not having more of a general focus on what it means to be a man going his own way. I think, however, that there is an end game for the MGTOW man, for the man going his own way, as far as how he relates to women. I think that essentially there is a solution, if you want to call it that, for men available, whether you're a MGTOW monk or whether you're still going to date women or whatever the case may be. I think that once you become self-aware and you decide that you're going to go MGTOW, that there is a natural um, kind of conclusion, there is a natural outcome for how you view women as a whole. So to recap or kind of go over the basic principles again, in a sense, MGTOW necessarily involves what I have broken down into two red pills. I believe that you have to not only understand male versus female nature and come to the realization that men are not women and women are not men, and women are never going to take men's place in society, and vice versa. And ultimately, it's up to men to lead as husbands and fathers. It's up to men to make decisions for a family. But when you look at men's position in society, you as a man cannot actually be a good father and husband. You are just a guest in your own home. A woman can make false accusations against you based on the social system, the social circumstances that we find ourselves in, due to gynocentrism and in particular to feminism. Men are not really able to fulfill the roles that they're expected by society to fulfill. And once a man comes to both of these understandings that, it can't just all be about men and women acting like they're the same, men are still expected to be the providers and the protectors of society, but they're no longer rewarded or even permitted to essentially do this in an effective sense. Men who realize this and fully accept the consequences of this, of course, they choose to go their own way. That's what MGTOW is. It's about realizing that you are better off as a man not involving yourself in permanent relationships with women, not caring about what society tells you as a man that you must do, and just basically carving your own path, deciding what's good and what's true for yourself in your own life. Not in a subjective sense of truth, but from the standpoint that, you have to decide what works best. You have to go your own way because society's way just does not work for you. It is just very toxic and unhealthy for you as a man. So this is the core of MGTOW. Now there are many results to what MGTOW involves. There are many results to choosing to opt out and go your own way. I've talked about the dark side of the red pill, where I mentioned that you will be seen as kind of the bad guy, so to speak, by society and by most women, and that you have to be prepared for that mentality. You have to be prepared for people shaming you and wanting you to go back to the so-called plantation. But one of the things that I want to talk about in this particular video, or the thing that I want to discuss in this particular video, is that I found that after I've gone MGTOW, I really have developed a lot of indifference toward the goals, the desires, and the opinions of women. And I think that is the natural outcome for how men, that is the natural, I guess, development for how men view women as a whole. Once they decide to opt out of just being, you know, a guest in your own home, just being basically a servant to society where you aren't respected. You're told that you have toxic masculinity. You're not allowed to see your own kids. You can get thrown in jail on a whim from whatever a woman claims that you've done. Once you reach this point and you go MGTOW, caring about what women's issues involve and listening to their opinions really becomes, I think, something different than what it is before you take the red pill and go your own way. Now, like I started out saying, many MGTOW men are criticized for having an overemphasis on always talking about women or never focusing on personal growth, just saying that women are bad, that they're evil, talking about no waltz and unicorns. That's part of this too. It's, at the end of the day, you're still focusing on women when you're having those discussions. So, there's a lot of men who want to talk about women's negative qualities based on what we understand about female nature. There are men who, like I said, they think women are evil. And it's important to understand these things. It's important to understand male and female nature. It's important to be aware of the argument of, are women generally evil? Are they born evil? Are they not evil? Or, are there nawalts? These kinds of arguments are important just because you have to understand the truth before you can really accept it. But there is merit to the criticism that many MGTOW, especially MGTOWs who, want to comment by saying women are just evil and they don't really say anything else other than this, or producers who just, all they do is talk about how this person's a feminist and that person is, blue pill. And it's at the end of the day, that can only go so far. It becomes redundant to continue to talk about women in a way that doesn't add new information to the um, book of knowledge, I guess, to the content of knowledge that we already have. And as a result, this does become just kind of not optimal as far as what MGTOW can be for the individual man. If you identify yourself as MGTOW by just saying that you hate women or that discussing women all the time, then women still have a great deal of power over you. And again, it's just not helpful to constantly concentrate on what women are saying or doing. Now, that being said, I realize that men have a natural desire to provide for and to protect women. I think this is part of what, I've alluded to this in the past when describing how men and women love differently. I think that this is a part of just human nature. This is a part of how we've succeeded as a species. Most men have it within themselves to help women along in life. I know that as MGTOW, we're opting out of that to a large extent, but we still have it within ourselves to actually care about what particular women think if we choose to do so. We still have it within ourselves to want to make sure that women are safe, for example, want to meet their standards for security, and to, essentially love them. Again, that's how men and women love differently. Men actually do care about these things. Most men actually have it within themselves, at least from the beginning, to be concerned with women in society. In fact, that's how women got the right to vote to begin with, was because men listened to them and basically decided that they just deserved the right to vote because it was something that we wanted them to have. It was a big mistake as far as I'm concerned, but this is an example of men just giving something to women because they want it, and giving something to women because they actually listened to what women wanted. However, today we've reached a stalemate because we have a gynocentric society that has an endless list of ridiculous expectations from men. And men can, walk on that treadmill that keeps going faster and faster and faster until they fly off. But at the end of the day, even if you do that to yourself, you're still considered a failure by women and by society. You're still considered to be a so called bad man for not letting a woman take advantage of you financially, for not wanting her to take your kids away. It's like you can do everything right. And even if a woman cheats on you in a relationship today, to use a really blunt and straightforward example, you know, you'll be told that you as a man didn't do enough to make her happy. It's all about more money and more utility and just doing more for women as a whole. And that breaks the natural desire. That I guess invalidates the natural desire that men have to take care of women and to listen to what they have to say. Women are unappreciative, and men are walking away from the pointless effort of trying to do for them and trying to help them have better lives. When women don't listen to you, they don't respect you, they take your stuff anyway, and at the end of the day, you're left holding the baggage, and you're left, playing the role as the bad guy, as if you didn't try to help her in the first place. I've been through this, and so have many other men in relationships and in their dealings with women in general, where no matter what you do, it's just not good enough. So, like I said, there's a natural end game for how men approach women, MGTOW men in particular, I should say, for how they view women. Once confronted with the reality of generally receiving no benefit in dealing with so-called average or typical women, there's simply no reason to care about their goals or their desires or their opinions on virtually anything. Because no matter what you do as a man, the end result's the same anyhow, as a whole. In the long run, you just have no sort of benefit or reward for actually giving a crap about women's opinions or their views or their goals or anything about them, really. So I'm not saying that our experiences with individual women aren't still important and that we shouldn't talk about those experiences. And it's also important to still talk about female nature when we have new ideas or learn something else or we see female nature in action. And again, it becomes a personal experience for us. But when it comes to women collectively, and this is primarily what I'm talking about here, there's simply no reason to care about women anymore. There's simply no reason to give a concern about or to give a second thought about, what a woman wants from you. Who cares? At the end of the day, you're not going to give any sort of positive result. You're not going to get a positive result from anything that you do for a woman. So ultimately, like I say, I have it within myself, and I think it's fair to say that most other MGTOW men have it within themselves to care about women, to actually listen to what they have to say. Whether, society would change or we would be, if we were in just a different world where men were actually in control, and responsibility and authority actually correlated with one another, we would be in a position potentially to listen to what women have to say. And I'm not talking about giving them the right to vote or and going through that whole process again, but just, being concerned with, okay, maybe the rate of rape is higher, so we'll be concerned with this now. Again, this doesn't have anything to do with our actual situation now in the West, but if we were actually concerned with, women not being able to have their basic needs met, or if there was a particular situation where a woman was with a husband or something that who was abusive, we as men might actually want to respond to that and protect women and make sure that they have provision. But as it stands, even though I have it within myself, and again, I think most other MGTOW men and definitely men in general want to do for women. They want to be supportive in this kind of way. They want to help women along in life. Even though that we have it within ourselves, it has become irrelevant. It has become completely pointless. And once you accept MGTOW principles, you realize this, that it's become pointless to try to do any of these things that men would normally do for women. So again, when you learn the kind of red pill knowledge and you choose to go your own way, there's just no reason to engage in pandering to women, arguing with them for the most part once they've made their position clear, once you've tried to describe something to them once. or caring about their opinions, caring about what they believe, what their goals are. Who cares? And like I said in one of my other videos, the opposite of love is indifference. It's not hate. It's just pulling out and saying, you know what, at one time, I loved doing things for women. And I can say this is generally true for myself. I loved, playing that role as a man. I mean, not in the sense of putting myself in a vulnerable position, but when I was blue pill and I didn't realize that that vulnerable position existed, I had no problem putting myself out there for women. I had no problem caring about, a woman's future. Sandman mentioned, in many of his videos, he's mentioned that he had two long-term relationships where at the end of the day, the woman was better off, not just financially and whatnot, but she had actually grown into not necessarily a better person, but a person with, a better position in life because of the relationships that they had with him, but he was just in a worse off place. And that's exactly the kind of thing that I'm talking about here. And that was my experience as well, is that, you know, no matter what you actually do for women, at the end of the day, you're in the same position as the bad guy who actually does abuse women, or who actually, is just an asshole, or whatever the case may be. You really don't gain anything from doing things like trying to give a woman a family, because at the end of the day, it's not your family. You don't gain anything from giving a woman money, because at the end of the day, she just monkey branches to somebody else. So once these kinds of things sink in, and this is the way it's worked for me, the way that I view women as a whole, the way I see them collectively is, I don't care what they think. I don't care what they want. It makes no difference, because I'm not going to be able to give them what they want anyhow. And they're going to end up blaming me when they're unhappy anyway. And again, this may not apply to every single woman, but I'm talking about women collectively here. I'm talking about the average or so-called typical woman, especially millennial women that you'll encounter today, regardless of political ideology, regardless of personal beliefs that she may have. At the end of the day, she can use the social and legal structures to just do whatever she wants. And beyond that, at the end of the day, she expects you as a man to agree to that deal. So once you realize there is no winning this game, that there's no reason to try to play by the rules, because they're all, the rules are a joke. The whole list of expectations that women have for you is a joke, and you've gone your own way in the first place. Once you get to this point, women as a whole, women collectively, are no longer really important in any way unless it directly affects you. So the ending thought, or the final thought that I want to have for this, is the realization that this is what women, at least in my opinion, hate the most about MGTOW. Men who otherwise would be providers and protectors, and otherwise would be happy to play the role of father or husband, who otherwise would be okay with listening to what women have to say in the sense of actually giving a crap about it. These men no longer care. And again, I use myself as an example. I just, when women complain and say that something's sexist, or they say that, some something like the wage gap is unfair, or even something that may be more legitimate than that. If they want to talk about whatever issues they feel like is affecting them, I just don't care. Even if there's truth behind it, even if it's something that actually makes some logical sense, I just don't care about the so-called plight of women anymore. And again, I think that that's what women really hate, is that decent men who may have money, who may have otherwise had the willingness to be part of the plantation, or to essentially live on the plantation, to use that metaphor, these men are no longer willing to give women their best. They're no longer willing to give women anything. And like I say, or like I've mentioned before, I'm willing to still have associations with certain women. I'm not saying that there are zero women that I'd ever do anything for at all, but as a whole, taken collectively, I have no reason to care what women think or what they want. I've already left the plantation, and there's just no reason to presuppose that what they say or what they want actually matters. And ultimately, women can go their own way too. Not in the sense that individual women actually will for the most part, because they still want and need men, but in the sense that it no longer matters to me what happens to women as a whole, because there's no benefit in dealing with women, and there's just no rationale for me really caring about any issues or problems that they may have, even if those problems are actually real and would otherwise constitute a concern. I, as a red pill man, I just don't have time for that. I'm not going to stick my neck out there so that a woman can, leave me and make me the bad guy anyway. I'm not going to provide for a woman just so, she can take kids away that were never really mine in the first place in the future. There's no reason for me to make those sort of arrangements. There's no reason for me to, the motivation I have for making this video is that I've noticed really that my everyday kind of interactions with just talking to a girl, it's like in the past, I would have enjoyed having a discussion with a woman about something in particular. In the past, I might have wanted a woman to flirt with me, or, I would have wanted to talk to her. And now I just don't care, because I realize that the average woman that you run into today is just a waste of time for me as a man. And I think this is a much better overall conclusion to reach about women than hating them or talking about the waltz or saying that they're all evil or whatever the case may be. There, just at the end of the day, it doesn't matter whether they're in the waltz. It doesn't matter whether women are evil or not. What matters is the overall circumstances that you have as a man that lead to you going your own way and being indifferent to whatever it is that women think or whatever it is that they want to get from you. Because honestly, it's no longer relevant. And even though your personal experiences as a man remain relevant and understanding male and female nature remains relevant, dealing with women as they are right now, under the current social and legal environment that we find ourselves in, it's just totally pointless. And, you know, at the end of the day, we're just better off having a neutral response and just not rescuing women from their own mistakes and realizing that we need to focus on ourselves instead.